This is part 3 in our series on basics on AI strategy. And I want to talk about tracking results. So first, we've talked about the vision in chapter number 1, how we align the corporate strategy, what the business wants to do with what the users want and the pain points. How do we align those? Then I talked about how do we prioritize the projects, because in general, I see loads of companies that are really interested in running multiple different projects. Then in the second chapter, I was talking about how to prioritize the projects, how to, based on action and feasibility, how do we define the ones that we need to look for, because there could be multitude in business, in my experience, and this is something that it's important. And lastly, we need to talk about tracking the results. So once you got your projects approved, what do you need to do to get them to life, and how do you make sure that the board of directors is not on you because you are not delivering results? So the first thing that I want to talk about is that we need to define a baseline. Okay, there's this saying that goes like this: to know how far you've gone, you need to look back, right? So if we have a little chart like this, where this is time and this is action, whatever that is, then something like this might happen, right? Now, to know exactly how far you've gone or how good or bad you've done, you need to define a baseline. And this red line defines that baseline, okay? So we can see that at the beginning we did a big significant improvement, and then we went back, and then kind of like over time we've managed to continuously keep going upwards. This is what I mean by having a baseline. So for this, something that I use is something called value stream mapping, VSM. And what that means is that I'm going to look at a process and I'm going to break it down into every single sub-process that requires to accomplish that task or give value to a customer. And I'm going to look at each and every single one of these mini steps, and I'm going to see how I can use AI to enable it. This links with chapter number 2. This is kind of like the actual implementation, how you go about doing these things. I personally take this approach because I come from manufacturing, and in manufacturing, value stream mapping is kind of like a very well respected and known sort of methodology to actually determine what you need to do and what are the things that you need to kind of like merge, and so on and so forth. Now, once you have all of that, then you can start talking about designing your key performance indicators, okay? For me, I've given these 5, which are related to AI in most cases, especially model quality, which is this one. But if you were to take only something out of this chapter, is I want you to focus on the adoption and the business impact. The rest, you can sort of have it as good measure. Like these 3 are what I will call like the icing on the cake. Most companies want to track them because operational system infra and so on, they are related to costs. And most things are about costs and revenue and profit and so on. But I tend to have all of that here in business impact. So what are these 5 different things, okay? And focus on the adoption and on the business impact. Adoption is how many people use it, okay? So in your business, how many people are actually using the system that you've designed through VSM, okay? This is actually harder than it sounds, way harder, because people don't want to change. And in most cases, in my experience, when they see somebody coming in to improve the ways of working, they see it as, why do we need somebody to tell us how to work? In manufacturing, that's quite common. People are quite proud in the ways of working that they have, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have the ability to step back, look at a process and decide, actually, you know what, we are spending lots of time on something over here that we shouldn't spend the time on, because we can leverage AI, we can leverage other technologies, and hopefully if you've done steps 1 and 2 correctly, you can determine in those if actually AI is the right answer for you. Okay, that's adoption. And KPIs around adoption is just user engagement. So if you have the department, for example, what's the percentage of people using that? That's a simple metric. Now, business impact, Obviously, we've designed kind of this in chapter number 2 around the priorities and so on, but how much money are we getting back from this? So the moment that we implement this technology in, how much money or time are we recovering? And for that, even before you start, value stream mapping again gives you a very good understanding of this metric as well, like how much money you can recover, because you can link time to hours saved, and hours saved can be linked to money in general around human labor and so on. Now, as I said, I focus on these two if I didn't have anything else to focus on. These three, okay? So I'm gonna choose another color for that. For me, system infra is all about understanding the costs, the evaluations, and anything else that falls within can I service people, okay? So one of the reasons why sometimes adoption drops is because your system infra is not good enough. Your application takes too long, the user experience is not great for the users and so on. Perhaps user experience is a topic on itself and shouldn't be contained within the system infra. But I see people putting it over here because adoption sometimes is linked to that, and it's linked to the metrics around the architecture of the application. The operational stuff goes back to the value stream mapping. So if I free labor, so if labor goes down, then where else can I use that labor and how can I optimize it? So operational metrics could be, in manufacturing, it will be something like OE, overall equipment efficiency, things like that. And now that I see this operational efficiency KPI go up, then what do I do with that extra labor? So you actually get a compound effect when you implement AI. So you might have a saving or an improvement on your time or revenue through AI, and then you have more labor that can also impact other areas of the business. So you get the compounded benefit of using that. This is the reason why AI is so powerful, okay? And the goal shouldn't be to remove people. The goal should be to get your people to do higher quality work and more valuable stuff, so you can charge more for that service, and then you can get all of that revenue, okay? Now, if we're talking about AI applications, you're gonna need LLMs mostly. If you're talking about the new waves of AI, you're gonna need LLMs. And what that means is that if you go through an API, a third-party provider, then are you getting consistently, going back to the system infrastructure, are you getting the same responses all the time? Are responses good or bad? How do you monitor that? Okay, so this is around model quality. Now you have your own infra, yeah, is over time, if you need to fine tune models, or if you need to add vector storage or anything like that, how do you evaluate the responses? Again, everything is around the responses, and everything is about making sure that the response is factual, okay? Facts, because LLMs hallucinate, LLMs dream, and it's a feature, it's not a bug, it's the way that they are designed. And so our role as architects and as engineers is to make sure that our user doesn't get to see those features. They need to see what they need to see, which is the right answer, the right solution, the right product, and so on and so forth. These 5 things are super useful to then build around your monthly reports, quarterly reports, anything that basically proves that whatever you design in steps 1 and 2 is actually happening, and that you also prove that way that the money they are spending on you is worth it. So hopefully with these 3 chapters, you get the basics around AI strategy. If you want to know more about what we're doing with AI, I have a free community. The link is in the description below. You're more than welcome to join. It's all about discussion. There's nothing to sell in there. All I do is just give away information. So please consider going in there, and I'll see you on the next video.